Welcome back to the Art and Science of Real Estate Negotiation podcast with Tom Zeeb, your host with Traction Real Estate Mentors. Very happy to have a special guest with us today, someone who helped me enormously getting my business moving at a much faster speed by focusing on marketing and the marketing message. Now, I know this is a podcast on negotiations, so what does marketing have to do with it? Well, the answer is quite honestly a lot, because the beginning phases of negotiation are completely overlapped with the phases from marketing. And if you do a good job in marketing and get the message right, and you're bringing the right people into your circle and bringing the right people into your business, whether that be a real estate business and its motivated sellers or any sort of business, right? You bring the right customers in, it's easier to negotiate with them because they already want what it is you're trying to get them to say yes to. So that's why we have none other than Dov Gordon with us today. Hey, Dov.
Hello, Tom. Thanks for having me.
Oh, thanks for being here. So tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are, what you do, and then I want to have some conversations.
Currently, what I do is I run a group at profitablelationships.com, and we have a community we call the Joint Venture Marketing Mastermind, and we're a community of people who market and sell to small business consultant coaches, agency owners, and so on, using online direct marketing. And that's my focus. That's what we do currently. Over the years, I've done all kinds of business consulting and coaching and I still do work with consultants and coaches and so on in a one-on-one basis to help them create a consistent flow of ideal clients. That's me.
Fantastic. And what people may not know is that you are the one who came up with the name for Traction. So Traction Real Estate Mentors, Traction Real Estate Investors Association. You are the man behind the curtain on that. That was not my idea. That was your idea.
That was a conversation we had, right? Because we were looking to understand what is it that, your ideal member is looking for. And as I recall, because this is quite a number of years ago, what you shared with me was that, well, you think a lot of them, they have a lot of knowledge and a lot of information. They know how to do a lot of things, but they're still struggling to, to gain traction. I might have heard you say the word, I don't remember exactly. And then I said, well, what if we call it traction? And I think we had the somewhat slightly cheesy phrase of from spinning your wheels to profitable deals. I don't know if you still use that, but
I do. It is slightly cheesy, but I like it.
Yeah, I guess it does capture the key idea. So that's good, right? It does capture it.
So let's take this idea of getting a marketing message down for whatever business someone's in. Most of my listeners are going to be focusing on building their real estate investment businesses, but in general, developing a marketing message. Talk us through it. What's important about it? What angle you're looking for? How do you go about developing a marketing message?
Developing a marketing message is, first of all, you have to realize that the goal of the message, which is the first goal of anything marketing related, is to get the attention and interest of your ideal client. So they come across your message, it's to get them to get their attention and interest. Now, attention, a lot of things will get your attention. If you hear loud noise, it'll get your attention. And then when you realize there's no big deal, you go back to what you were doing. Didn't quite get your interest. If I send you some, corny YouTube video or interesting YouTube video, you might watch it and then go back to what you were doing. Got your attention, but didn't lead you to change your plans. A good marketing message will lead you to change your plans and take a step towards me or towards whoever is putting out the message. So for example, if you and I were at a conference, we're at a convention of some kind, and, we notice, a booth over there because they have this sign up and hey, that's interesting. Let's go have a look and see what that is. So we were heading, straight in this direction. We noticed something. We weren't planning to turn right. We changed our plans and we head off to the right. So the first thing is to understand what is the purpose of a good message. And the purpose of a good message is to get the attention and the interest of your ideal client. Now, fortunately, that may sound like a tall order. So the good news is that there are only two things that anybody is interested in. Only two things that get the attention of your ideal client. And that is if you talk about, number one, a problem they have and don't want, and or if you talk about a result they want and don't have. So if you talk about a problem they have and don't want, you'll get their attention and their interest. And if you talk about a result they want and don't have, you'll get their attention and interest. So, like if you talk about, I was just talking to somebody, so it's fresh on my mind, she helps people with their, align their subconscious with their goals that they want, which sounds kind of interesting, I suppose, but that's an example of something where there's so many different directions you can take it, so many different potential problems you can help solve, results you can enable. If you do not focus on something, then it's unlikely to be an effective message. So the point is that you might have some skill, some ability that can serve lots of different people. However, you have to realize that because each one of us, we only have, I'm not going out there thinking that my subconscious this or that, but I might be waking up in the morning concerned that, and this is an example that she gave me as someone she was helping. This is not me, but in my late 40s, no relationship and a job, and I'm not treated well. Boss doesn't treat me well, and it's time for a change. Fortunately, I'm married and 6 kids, so that's not it. Running my own business, but that's an example, and nothing wrong with that, right? And that obviously we all have our challenges. I don't at all claim to have it all figured out. I do not, but so this person came to her and was working with her, and within 90 days, she really helped him to where he's now working a different part of the company. He's more involved in his community, things that he wanted. And, so he had some very specific problems that he had wanted solved. It wasn't necessarily about aligning his subconscious, because the challenge is that if we talk about what we do, when we will not necessarily get the attention and interest of our ideal clients. If we talk about a problem they have and don't want, a result they want, don't have, we will get their attention and interest. Now, real estate, obviously, way better than I do. So when it comes to messaging, I imagine we're talking about for sellers, right? Or for buyers, I guess, right?
Mostly motivated sellers, the main creative.
So the question is, like, what's the problem that an ideal seller has that makes them motivated? What's the problem they have and don't want? What's the result they want, don't have? That if they come across your message, they're going to connect and say, wow, you're speaking out loud exactly what's going through my mind, right?
I think that's the key distinction, isn't it? That the conversation is now about them, their problems, the problem they have and don't want, the result they're after but don't have, and not what most people do at the beginning is, hi, my name's Tom. I'm with, Happy Home Buyers, and I want to this property because this is what we do. Me. When it shouldn't be about you, it should be about them.
Specifically about, you're speaking aloud, a problem they have and don't want, a result they want and don't have, as they would express it, articulate it to a friend. So think about, this ideal motivated seller, right? What would they say at the end of a long day over a beer with a close friend? How would they describe their situation?
That's the conversation you want to have, right? That level of
you want to be speaking it out. You want to be speaking it out loud, similar to the way they would be speaking it. And that's what we're doing with Traction. Traction Real Estate Investors Association, right? Your RIA. It's all about going from spinning your wheels to profitable deals. You're speaking aloud what people are frustrated by. Let's say we can easily imagine, and I'm sure that you've heard, I know that over the years, people have said it's a good name and the message really talked to them. And I imagine if they were meeting with, again, we got it from conversations that you'd had with members and were sharing with me. So we just like, you were sharing what you had heard, and I just knew what I was looking for. Right. In terms of the insights. And that is describing a problem that they have and don't want, result they want, don't have. I want to be able to stop, I already know so much. I want to be able to turn that knowledge into income, profit, good deals. So that's an example of it. Whereas if you just say, come learn how to succeed at real estate investing, it's way less specific. It will talk to some people, no doubt, for sure. But the member who's already feeling like, I already know a lot, like, why should I go to to another real estate investors association and another RIA meeting or another seminar or workshop? And then they hear, from spinning your wheels to profitable deals, we understand that for you, it's not just about more information. You need to figure out how to take that information and turn it into traction, into movement forward, success, deals.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. You guys, all right. So let me go give you a shot. And then once they're in your door, I'm sure most people have a good experience and want to come back. That's always the biggest challenge, is to get started, to get that first chance with people.
And we do the same with motivated sellers marketing as investors. If you stick to the generic message, some people respond. Usually if they're advanced enough in terms of motivation, they're desperate enough, they'll respond to a generic kind of quote unquote, we buy houses message, but that's generic. The more specific you can get about what their actual problem is, because we buy houses about, well, that's what I do. when you start talking about, are you in probate or are you in foreclosure? Have you inherited a property? Do you need help with this? Are you getting divorced, right? You get into their problem, the conversation going on in their mind. That's when you're going to get the really good motivated sellers.
Absolutely.
And that makes a difference. So Dov, tell me, when you're trying to find these people, I think there's a difference. You've said to me before about how you go after a motivated seller, how you go after a target market. Are you chasing those people or are you trying to attract those people? And which one do you choose and what's the difference?
Well, I think most of us would much rather attract, right? And you attract with a simple, compelling, head-turning message, right? I mean, chasing is exhausting. We all have to do some chasing from time to time, I suppose, right? I mean, that sometimes you got to work the phones, you got to sometimes pound the pavement, knock on doors, I imagine, and the whatever the equivalent of that is in whatever business you're in. But yeah, I mean, you remind me of something specific that you had in mind, but it's that when you have that message, you have a simple, compelling, head-turning message that leads people to come towards you.
What do you try to do to boil a message down to be simple and compelling? Because I think a lot of people start off wordy and confusing, and we're trying to get to a simplicity. What's the process for that?
So let me pull up. I have a process that I call my 7 magical message filters, and I'm just going to pull that up here so that I can walk you through it if you like.
Sure.
The first thing that you really need to be sure of, I think of this, first of all, in order to craft a simple, head-turning, compelling message, I think of it as starting with your core message, your core idea, and taking it through 7 filters. And you really want it to pass from one to the next. If it goes through all 7 filters, you've got a simple, head-turning, compelling message. So the first thing is, are you talking about a solution, meaning a methodology, or are you talking about a problem they have and don't want, or a result they want and don't have? So it has to be like, you want to be talking about a result, a problem they have and don't want, and or a result they want and don't have. If you're not talking about that, then you're not going to, you're talking about yourself, like you said before. So you've got to be talking about a problem they have and don't want. So I know what would be an example of a seller's problem that a seller has.
Problem that a seller has, let's say they've inherited a property from a grandparent. And
Okay.
It's out of town. They don't live in that town anymore. And they've got this property that there's value to it, but there's also a lot of headache to dealing with it.
Okay. And before we go further, what's a typical message that you see real estate investors putting out there that is not likely to work? It just sounds like everybody else. And what's a typical message?
I think the most typical one is the plain old, we buy houses.
Okay. So we buy houses, and that doesn't work so well, you're saying. Okay.
Occasionally,
so we buy houses.
not so well.
All right. So let's say we buy houses is one, and the other one was, and the other option is that people are going through, like you said, divorce, or they inherited a house, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So we buy houses. Let's take that through filter 1. Is it a solution or methodology, or is it a problem they have and they want a result they want to have? It could qualify as a problem, as solving a problem, right? But it's at a very high level, and that's why it works sometimes, but it's kind of up there. If you say, did you just inherit a home? Or are you going through divorce and need to get the maximum value out of your home? Something like that. Now we're talking about a problem they have and don't want, result they want to have. It's much, much more specific, much more down to the ground, so to speak, because that's at the level that the person is thinking about it, right? When the person is thinking, well, we need to sell the house and get the most we can out of it. Like, okay, maybe we need a good agent, right? But when they come across the message of, did you inherit, or are you going through divorce and need to get the maximum sale value out of your house, something to that effect, that's now you're meeting them exactly as they're thinking about it in their own mind. And when you can articulate what somebody is experiencing or thinking, as well as, or better than, more clearly than they're saying it to themselves, then they're thinking, wow, you just said what I'm thinking better than I'm thinking it, more clearly than I'm thinking it. You really get me. You really understand me. And that's what people want. We want to feel understood. When people feel that you understand them, you have a huge advantage. And not only that, but we tend to assume that if someone understands us, we assume, often not necessarily, it doesn't necessarily make sense, not necessarily true, but we assume that they also know what we should do. So they say, wow, you really get me, Tom. What should I do? How do I sell this house to get the maximum value? Okay. or maybe or maybe if you're an investor, maybe you don't want to give them the impression that it's going to be the best price, but you want to give them like the best speed or the best terms, right? Or sell it fast, right?
The best solving of the problem. So that's
yes.
it. If I can communicate to them and put their problem, their issue into words better than even they can, like I'm literally pulling it out of them and they're going, yes, that's what they wish they would have said, then they naturally assume I have the answer. And therefore, right, I'm the only logical choice for who they want to work with for selling the property.
Because not only is it logical, but it's also emotional. And the emotion comes from that you're giving me the feeling that you understand me. And very few people have that feeling of being understood very often. You know, it's unfortunate. Most of us, most of the time do not feel like we're understood by, people around us or, customers, clients, family, whatever it might be. And that's the way it is. So like we all want to work with the person who we feel gets us. And a lot of people in the marketing and sales world, like they know that. We all know it's a basic psychological insight. And people are trying to kind of con you will also try to give you that feeling that they understand you. So sometimes it's very transparent and you're talking to somebody who is trying hard to say all the right things to make you feel like they care about you or they understand you. And you can immediately tell you just want my money, right? It's so transparent. That person is trying to, play a game here, a psychological game, and you're able to see through it. But other times it's genuine, right? When it's genuine, we can also sense that, we can feel that. Every now and then you'll come across a really good con artist who can, comes across as genuine, but really just wants your money. Obviously, that's a different conversation. But, so over here, like when you give somebody the feeling like, wow, yeah, you understand me. You understand that I'm going through a rough time and I need someone who's going to help me navigate this part of it as effectively as possible to get me the best terms or best whatever, best price and as fast as possible, whatever they need. Then, wow, I can tell from the way you articulated it that you get my situation. So like, what do you recommend? I want to know what you recommend. And then once you make a recommendation, my question is going to be, well, wow, is what you recommend, is that a deal? Like, is it easier for me to say yes than to say no? Yeah, that's the offer part. You're making me an offer that should, it's an easy yes offer. Make it easier for me to say yes than to say no. So that's so filter number one. Are we talking about a problem they have and they want, a result they want don't have, or are we talking about some method, right? So, and I'd say that, obviously if you say, something along the lines of, how did you say it before about you're going through divorce and need to sell your house fast or something?
That's one potential. They've inherited a property is another potential.
Have you inherited a property and what? And what's the problem that they're having with it?
Oh, they've inherited a property. Let's say it's in another state or it's far away. The place, they're busy with their own life back wherever they live. And they know they need to sell this property. They know they don't want to hold on to it, but it's not necessarily that easy. It might be full of, all of grandma and grandpa's stuff and they got to get rid of it. So those are the kinds of situations we come up against a lot.
Right. So we'd be looking for that type of, a way of articulating that in a clear and concise way. So great. So once we know that we're talking about a problem more than a result, we want to take it through filters 2 and see if it makes it through. So filter 2, is it observable? How would you know it when you see it? All right. So again, like when we're talking about, to go back to the other example I mentioned earlier, like, okay, how to align your subconscious mind with your goals, right? How would I know if my subconscious mind is aligned with my goals? I don't really know, right? I don't know. So it's a difficult message, difficult angle, because people hear it and they don't instantly connect it to what really, the problem they really have and don't want, result they want and don't have. So you really want to say instead something along the lines of, we help you become the one who easily gets a valuable promotion, or something like that, right? We help you and become the one. That kind of implies that we're talking to somebody who recognizes that my promotion is not just about some trick. It's about me growing myself, right? So in other words, that person recognizes that the problem I have don't want really rests with me. Now, when I work with them, we might be working to align their subconscious, whatever the heck that means. Okay. And I don't mean to dismiss it, because I do understand that I think there's a lot there. It's just that you want to try to pin it down. So, but if I'm going to put that out as a message, it's like, okay, so, how to stop getting in the way of your own next promotion. right? For example, like, so that would be a message. Now, I'm not talking about my methodology. My methodology might be very much about using, subconscious alignment techniques. Okay. But, if we're all going for surgery, I mean, we don't really care what tool the surgeon is using. We don't even necessarily know if the surgeon is saying, well, I use this type of scalpel or that type. Not,
I don't care.
what
Just want to
I
make
don't
sure
care.
you do
I
it.
just want to know you know
It's
how to
my
use
heart.
it. Yeah,
Yeah.
I want to know that you know what you're doing, right? Now, by contrast, if a dentist is promoting, let's say, laser dentistry as pain-free, and I've never tried it, so I don't know, but or some type of pain-free, that's now what the dentist is actually saying there. And the message is that, wow, if you don't like going to the dentist because of the pain involved, I have a method that you'll be much more comfortable with. And because I'm telling you about the mechanism I'm using, in this case, like, laser drill or whatever it might be, again, I don't know. So that creates credibility, that creates believability. So I could believe that you have this tool that I have not yet tried, and it'll get me to pick up the phone and call you, or to respond to your ad, or come into your office. Okay, whatever it might be.
Although interestingly, talking about that tool, I also seems to be talking about the problem they have. And they have a problem with the tooth. They have a problem with pain.
Exactly. But that's
there's a result. So that's interesting that particular message almost blends your ability to talk about a feature, but actually be talking about the benefit.
Exactly. Yeah. And that is exactly what I want to highlight, because even though they're mentioning the tool, it's only effective because they're actually helping me see, because they're talking to the problem I have and don't want, which is I want to avoid pain at the dentist, right? And the result I want to have is some kind of painless dentistry or something like that. So that's exactly. So is it observable? That's filter number 2. Is it observable? How do we notice when we see it? So, that I was going into that to give the example of somebody, like, how to get out of your own way and get that raise you want, or something like that, right? So now that's observable, because I could see that I'm getting in my own way. I kind of picture that in my mind. I realize, like, I'm just doing things, or I'm being lazy, or I'm not, I'm showing up later, and I know it's my fault. And that would be an example of it. All right. In terms of the messaging about, are you going through divorce and need to sell quickly? It's observable. We can immediately see what we're talking about. We buy houses is also observable. So again, the reason that works to some degree is because it's not a terrible message, but it's not going to differentiate you. It's not going to instantly give them that feeling of, like, wow, you get me. It's just going to say, oh, okay, you're also on my list of people to call, maybe, if I get to you, if the first person I call doesn't really impress me, right? So that's filter number 2. Filter number 3 is, what do they believe is causing their problem? What do they believe will enable the result? And this is a really important one. I'll give an example outside real estate, and then we'll see how we might apply it inside real estate. Let's say you're a financial expert, a consultant, financial consultant. Let's say you're an outsourced CFO, and you work with companies on whatever it might be. So you want to work with people on, I don't know, cash flow, right? So we help you improve your cash flow. Now, your ideal client could be somebody who, they have a product that's not selling anymore like it used to, right? And they're struggling with cash flow, and you can help them. However, in his mind, he doesn't believe that his problem is a cash flow problem. Yes, I know I'm having cash flow problems, but I believe that my problem is that our products aren't performing. So I'm just, like, looking to figure out how to improve sales, let's say, right? So if you come and you're talking about how to improve your cash flow, I won't even necessarily hear you. And obviously I'm making this up as we go along, right? So it may not be perfect. But the point is that if I'm a CFO, I would do much better to say, are you experiencing cash flow problems because your products are no longer selling as they used to because of a shift in the market or something like that? Now I will be able to get their attention and interest. Now, I know a lot of people will say, but that's really specific. I can help a lot of people with cash flow. My answer is, okay, great. So you want to really have a small number, 1, 2, 3 different, very specific problems you help solve, results you enable, that you're using in your marketing. Because if you just talk about cash flow, again, like, we sell houses, you might get some people reaching out to you, but they're likely not your ideal clients. And you may not really talk to your ideal clients at all, right? Again, because you got to get that level of specificity. So filter number 3 is, what do they believe is causing their problem? What they believe will enable the result? When it comes to real estate, what do they believe will prevent them from selling the way they want to sell, getting the terms they want? Whether it's a speedy sale or a price or whatever it might be. And if you can include some aspect of that in your message, you have a much better chance of getting their attention and interest. Okay.
Almost like you're handling the objection up front in the message.
Right. Exactly. Right. Now, I want to make it clear, like, you don't necessarily always have to get that in the first, your headline, because if you try to put too much into that first message, whether it's on a billboard or whatever, it becomes too much. But you want this insight. And let's say a lot of times we'll uncover insights into, like this would apply to the traction message in a sense, right? So like, we get through filters 1, 2, and 3, and like, what do they believe? The problem is that they're spinning, they're not really getting anywhere. What do they believe is causing it? What do they believe is causing it? Well, I believe that I intellectually understand a lot of this, but when it comes to doing it, I have questions and I don't have anywhere to turn, or something along those lines, right? So, okay, well, if you can address that in your messaging, they're much more likely to respond, because, wow, you really get me. Like, you're not just like saying the same thing as everybody else. You're 1 layer, 2 layers, 3 layers deeper. You're peeling the onion, getting into my mind and articulating my problem, the problem I have and the result I want to have, better than I could myself. Wow, you really get me. What do you recommend? Okay. Once you have that, if your message is passing through filter 3, filter 4 is so what? So what? Why does it matter that they have this problem? Why does it matter that they want that result? What's the consequence? And as clear as you can be about what those consequences might be. So let's say they're going through divorce and they want to sell fast. So what? Why does it matter? Right? So you can move on with the rest of your life. I don't know. Again, I just want to throw that out there. Again, that may not necessarily influence your leading message, but it might lead, might be a sub message that you find that you use in conversation, in some additional paragraphs, or however it is that you're getting in front of your ideal client in videos. Filter number 5 is why now? Why does it matter now? Right? What makes it important that they resolve this issue quickly? And again, you can say, well, you're getting divorced. Okay. Still, right? So what? Why does it matter? And why now? And the deeper, the more insight you have into that, then the more likely you are to have a simple, compelling, head-turning message. Then filter number 6 is it focused on a single idea. You want to make sure you're focused on a single idea. If you have too many ideas in that message, it's like, like not only, how to get out of the way of your own raise and improve your relationships while working 3 hours a day, or I don't know, whatever. So there's just like too much there. It just confuses the brain. It's like, whoa, what? You just jumped. I don't remember what the first thing was before you get to the second. And by the time you get to the third, so you really want to keep it clear and simple. The more you try to load in there, the less effective it's going to be. And again, people try to load too much into their messages. They try to be too high level, not down, 2, 3 levels down, but they try to be too high and the problem is it's just too meaningless. It doesn't mean anything. If you try to put too much into it, you lose people. All right. And the reason we do that is because, well, there's so many people I could help and they don't all have the same exact problem. Okay, true. But the more you put in there, the fewer people who are going to even hear and notice your message. So you got to work with human psychology. And lastly is what I call the cup of coffee test, or the pint of beer test, which is your message as you're describing it, would your ideal client, would they articulate it the way way you are when sitting down with a friend for a cup of coffee or a pint of beer? All right. And, would your ideal client say something like, hey, I'm just spinning my wheels with this real estate thing. I feel like I have so much information, like I got all that information and like I'm to the point where I'm going to more seminars and workshops, reading more books. I'm hearing the same stuff over again. I still just can't figure out how to make it actually work for me. Okay. You should come to Traction, Ria, because we get that. And that's our focus. Right.
Absolutely.
And, with the, do you, want to sell your house? Are you getting divorced? We can definitely hear it where somebody would say, yeah, look, this divorce is really a stressor. And, one of the biggest issues is getting, how we can deal with the house, right? Like I want to keep it or she wants to keep it, but like, how are we going to do this? And I don't know. We just don't even know how to approach it. And then, as you're walking out of the bar, you see a thing that says, you're getting divorced and need to figure out what to do with your house and need the best thing for your house. Whoa. I mean, they'll be on the phone with you before they, get back to their car. So because they've just described it to their friend that way, or they would describe it in that kind of way, imaginary, right? If they were sitting down with a friend, if you can meet the cup of coffee test and you've run through these filters, then you know you have a simple, compelling, head-turning message.
Oh, I love it. No, that's a masterclass in crafting a proper marketing message. And I think that's the whole episode, but that section in particular is worth a listen again multiple times to let that sink in.
Well, I actually do have a masterclass where I teach this. So it's called the Simple Compelling Message Masterclass. I teach this method. So,
I will
but
put
the truth is, like,
I'll put the
we have
link
another
to that in
5
the show
hours
notes.
of me actually taking people through it, like recordings of me taking people through it, so that you get, like, it really goes deep into your head. But yes, and we call it a masterclass. So that's what it, yeah. But
Perfect.
absolutely, yeah.
I'll put a link to that in the show notes on this as well. And Dov, so a couple of other things. First thing I'm thinking of is how much I started off saying, what's marketing got to do with negotiation, right? We're talking more about negotiation marketing. There's massive overlap. I break negotiation down into 3 major sections. The first one is pinpoint. So you pinpoint the problem. The second one is package, to package up a solution that would work for them. Then the third point is really the pure negotiation, which is persuade them to say yes to you. But those first 2 parts, you just went through the pinpointing and building a packaging up a solution that would work. So in many ways, that the marketing done right is already knocking out the first 2 out of 3 phases of your negotiation.
Definitely overlap for sure.
Yeah, there's a nice kind of symbiotic relationship there. The other things I wanted to cover, Dov, was some kind of business mindset or philosophical points that I know that you've been big on from what you've taught me over the years as well. And one of those is everybody's in a rush, right? They want to get to the finish line and they want to get this done. And there's sometimes a lack of patience, which doesn't usually do anyone any favors. So talk about the difference between pushing and a sense of urgency.
Yeah. Okay. I think rushing and a sense of urgency is probably how you heard it from me.
Yeah.
So,
exactly.
I realized this quite a number of years ago, that there's a distinction between rushing and a sense of urgency. And, rushing is where you try to make something go faster than it's naturally able to go. And a sense of urgency is where you don't allow things to take longer than they need. So it might have been inspired by something I heard from years ago from Stephen Covey, where he talked about, like, you can't rush the wheat crop, I think, or the corn or something to that effect. Like, you can't rush certain things. And when you try to rush them, it just comes back to bite you. It doesn't work. If you try to rush learning a skill that needs time or practice, it's not going to work. You can't just rush certain things. Some things, though, like, you don't want to let having a sense of urgency, though, about it is to make sure that you don't let things take any longer than they need. So, yeah.
Rushing sloppy leads to mistakes, doesn't really get you to where you think you want to be. But having a sense of urgency is keeping the importance of what you're doing, keeping the focus, make sure you're circling back on your business. I know a lot of people have a hard time as they get going as entrepreneurs. They still have to balance it, maybe with a day job, certainly with the family life and the personal life and things. And how do you make sure you don't let your business just float away because you're not getting enough action fast enough?
Well, everyone's got to find their balance. There's no one right answer for that. I mean, there are skills we can learn for, finding the right balance and so on. But then there's also the giving ourselves permission to move forward imperfectly. Sometimes we're waiting around, waiting until we're ready. And well, the truth is, we're never going to be fully ready. You only get ready when you're out there doing. So we have to do our preparation. There's preparing, studying, and there's just going out there in the real world and doing it. And you can only learn so much from books and courses and so on. You have to go out. Once you have some foundation, you got to go out into the real world and test it and learn from real experience. Get your, teeth kicked in a little bit. There's no other way. And people do tend to rush and try to go out and do things before they're ready. Then they go back and say, oh, I guess I must need more knowledge or information. And that often, so then we go in, but then we get stuck in the learning mode because we realize that this is harder than we expected. And we're not eager to have our teeth kicked in again. That was quite painful. So now we kind of, do all sorts of things that avoid the direct going out there, even though now we have the information. And we need that sense of urgency that keeps us moving. So we have all sorts of, we're each our own worst enemy. And often we need to get out of our own head. And, good coach, good friend, these are all things that can help us get out of our own heads. Good conversations with people. I don't think any of us can really do it alone. Even when we can help somebody with these things, we all need some help. None of us is fully independent in these things. We all need to get out of our own head and be challenged.
It's fantastic. I agree totally. Dov, how can people get in touch with you for more information about what you've said?
ProfitableRelationships.com is, like I said, my main thing. Dov, D-O-V at ProfitableRelationships.com. And you can send me an email. And if they have a question, I'm happy to try to help.
Terrific. Dov Gordon, totally awesome. Thank you very much for your time, your expertise. I think that's, like I said, so many levels of deepness there to go into. And if you're trying to clarify your marketing message to make your entire real estate negotiation process easier, go back through that again and make sure everything's passing through those 7-step process. That's terrific. Dov, thanks for everything. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Tom.